Okie dokie. Thank you so much. I'm gonna have you just look directly into the lens and do an introduction.
Okay. Hi, my name is Janet Roberts. I teach at Hug High School in Reno, Nevada, and I teach AP US History, and I've taught World History, and I've been teaching for 9 years.
That was a pretty good intro. Okay. Alright, so for the first section here, we want to understand the decisions you made in planning for this lesson and how it fits into the unit and year. So how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge? What was taught before this lesson and what will come after it? Discuss the sequence of lessons that surround this one lesson.
Well, this is a close read. Close reads are completely text dependent, and you don't want to do them every month. You definitely only want to do them maybe once a quarter. If you have a longer unit, maybe once a unit. They're really in-depth and they take multiple days to do. So prior to this lesson on H.L. Mencken's piece, A Critique on America from 1922, I had just finished teaching World War I, and so we were entering into the Lost Generation. In their English classes, they're going to be starting The Great Gatsby soon. So this was the perfect time to put this close read in so we could understand sort of the American people right after World War I. And let's see. And so after this lesson, they'll be doing an assessment, and then we'll be going on to other problems and great things from the 1920s.
Excellent. All right. Is the text used in this lesson part of a sequence of texts designed to build skills and knowledge? If so, please give example of other texts that form this sequence.
So this text is completely...
Sorry, one more time. Okay. Little bump in the mic.
Oh, sorry. This text is independent of itself. You obviously don't want to, go out of sequential time order. You want to focus on the same area that you're studying. But it's independent of itself. And it's just meant to give more understanding of America during a specific time period.
All right. So talk about the standards targeted in this lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard?
So one of our standards is engaging students and using, I'll just pull them out.
Sure.
It's the wrong one. Can we hit pause for a second
Sure.
so I can pull it up?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I have the right. There we go. Okay. Okay, so one of our standards is to explain major social, technological, and cultural developments of the 1920s. So because this standard focuses specifically on the 1920s, this is a perfect piece to meet that standard.
All right. Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplifies and why?
Ooh, that's a tie. Core Action 2 is fantastic, and as well as Core Action 3. Core Action 2 requires that we employ questions that are solely text dependent and text specific, while Core Action 3 says that we give students opportunities to engage not only with each other, but with the text themselves. So by doing a close read that requires them to go through a text not just once, twice, but 3 or 4 times to find answers that are specifically only found in the text, it meets Core Action 2. While Core Action 3, having students in small groups or in a whole class discussion, it requires them to engage with one another, engaging in the text. It also, for Core Action 3, it facilitates student learning with each other. They teach one another. It's a close read allows your students who aren't necessarily strong readers or are lacking in just talking to one another, just basic social skills. It allows them a chance to talk to one another and be part of the discussion. A lot of questions in a close read are both figurative and concrete. The kids who are more at a lower level are able to say, oh no, according to line X, Y, and Z, this is what the author is saying. while your higher achieving kids are able to say, yes, and you can extrapolate this. They might not say extrapolate, but they can build upon what a student who is maybe lower than they are is saying, and it just makes a richer discussion for everybody.
Very good. All right, the next section. This little couple of questions are about the CCSS.
Okay.
The shifts.
All right, so number 2.
So discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
All right, so our shifts require that we go to more text-dependent and text-specific. And that's what a close read is. You can't have any outside knowledge. You can't watch the History Channel to get something else. You can't even use the newspaper necessarily. You can only be in your text. And I think by not only the shifts that we make for social studies, but also the ELA shifts of using the seminal documents. Primarily, the documents that they want in ELA are the same ones we use normally. So we kind of meet 2 standards in a way with a close read. Let's see. I think that's what I've got for on my notes, at least for that.
All right, so let's go do a little time warp here.
Okay.
How did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS? What is the same and what is different?
So prior to this lesson, I've never used H.L. Mencken's piece. Last year, I'm fortunate enough to be in a Teaching American History grant cohort where we were able to go through and just spend a couple of days on finding documents, working on documents, and how would they meet requirements for our units. So prior to this, I never used it before. I'd never used this document. And if I had used a document similar to this, I would have done a lot more talking. I would have done a lot more hand-holding and a lot more hovering. But the more you do either a close read or just a classroom discussion, the more you see that your students can do this. It's terrifying to let go of the reins and just let your students just go and talk to one another. And especially with my size of a classroom, I have upwards of 6 to 8 small groups. I obviously can't be everywhere at one time, so I have to trust them that they're teaching one another and working with one another. So prior to this, I would have hovered. I would have been all over them. But, when you let them go, they surprise you. They really flourish when they're able to do things on their own.
Good answer. All right, section 3, here we go.
All right.
Student engagement is critical to the work of the CCSS. We want to understand how you ensured that all students had the opportunity to productively engage in the work of the lesson. So how did you or do you support all students in working with grade level text? Do you provide scaffolding for students below grade level? And what did you do to create opportunities for students who are advanced to engage more deeply?
One of the best things you can do as a teacher is to specifically group your students. Now, you don't want to say, here's your bluebirds and here's your crows. You want to have a low student, you want to have a few medium level students, and definitely a student who's higher achieving. But you don't want to make it obvious. So sometimes maybe in the lesson before, I'd allow them to choose their groups. And then this lesson, I'd say, okay, well, you chose last group. Now it's my turn to arrange you guys. So making sure that your groups have multiple levels to offer multiple perspectives in discussions is really, really important. The fact that you can only answer these questions with the text, as I said before, allows students who think more concretely to say, no, it's right here. And then, again, your higher level kids can go in and use the figurative language, pick up things maybe on the author's tone to just give a fuller and richer discussion that allows everyone to be more successful. Just one more thing. So this year, I've been focusing on using morphemes and on using academic words. So up there, I keep a running list of different morphemes and academic words. And doing something as simple as having 4 root words that you focus on for each unit, it gives them more access to the vocabulary that they're using. And access to the vocabulary, understanding in multiple uses of vocab words, just facilitates getting to their tier 2 and tier 3 understanding of vocab. And that that doesn't just help them in my class, but that helps them in English, that helps them in science, it helps them all over the place so that they're more successful throughout school and not just in U.S. history.
Cool. I'll have to get a shot of that after the interview. All right. How do you know that students were able to successfully respond to text-dependent questions and tasks with precision? Did students acquire the literacy skills addressed in this lesson? What did you or do you do for students who did not acquire the literacy skills addressed in this lesson?
The first thing you have to do is you've got to circulate like a shark. If you just stand by your desk, or you're only on one side of the room, or even if you're just in the middle and just kind of circulating, you're not going to hit all your kids. You don't want to just stand around your kids that you think are going to need extra assistance. That's why you've specifically made groups that have high achievers, medium achievers, and low achievers, because you have to trust that they'll help one another out. So as long as you're circulating, you'll have more success. You can listen in. You can, with the question techniques requiring them to write down specific line numbers, you can go through and check, okay, you've written down this line. I know that's going to be one of the answers. Good, you've met that requirement. You don't necessarily even have to ask them. You can just check it on spot. The other thing that I like to do is go from small groups to whole group. And using my Elmo, my projector, I'm able to say, all right, Timmy, what did you get here? And add literally myself writing the answers down allows kids to be like, oh, I forgot to add that. I'll add that really quick. And I'm able to, without grading each paper one by one, to know that they're getting the gist of it. For my students that I know have lower literacy abilities, just again, talking as a whole group allows them to hear it multiple times. I also, at the end of the lesson, we do a writing assessment. The writing assessment, you can do in multiple ways. You can have them do, I have a basic writing outline. So maybe I have a student that isn't necessarily a successful writer, but they can write down short abbreviations, short notes to themselves, and I know that they're understanding the concept. Maybe they don't have the finesse yet to write an entire 5-paragraph essay, but they have the ability to get their ideas across, and that's what I want.
Cool. All right, so this one is about core action 3.
All right.
So, which behaviors from core action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson? What actions have you taken as a teacher to make that happen?
Let's see. I would definitely say, so core action 3, part C says conditions for student conversation, plans tasks where students are encouraged to talk to each other. That's it. That's the gist of this entire lesson, is discussing and talking to one another. And it's something that is not only a core shift that they need in the classroom, but a shift that they need to do in the real world. This is something that it doesn't matter what type of job you have to be able to explain yourself, explain what you need to do, explain what others need to do. And by shifting as an entire educational realm, makes us sound like Game of Thrones, but by all of us shifting towards that, we'll create not only university students that are able to discuss with one another, get into concepts better, interact with their professors, but just on the job force. If you're going in and you're gonna have, I don't know, maybe you're a mechanic, you're gonna have to interact with instructional tests. You're gonna have to interact with text that is complicated. And so what? It's not academic. It's something that requires that you understand what you're reading in order to fix and be able to be successful on your job.
Perfect. That covers a lot. So we have 2 questions left, and you probably don't need your notes for this one, or this 2. But yeah, great job on everything. These 2 are kind of fun. So, great instructors are continuously learning. We want to understand what you celebrated in this lesson and what you'd improve upon. Reflecting on the lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently?
What worked really well were my groupings. I was able to put students that are friends with each other, that are also able to lift each other up, or they're at the same level. So specific grouping, I think I did really well on. But things that are odd and surprising, I had one student that decided to speak in an accent. You're 17, you've decided to speak in an accent. You can't anticipate that. It's just part of the job, and so you just have to make sure that while your student is speaking as the Queen of England, that he's also on point, on task, going back to the text, making sure that he's answering the questions. Things that I would change, well, I would definitely make sure I've made my copies properly. I accidentally put 1820 instead of 1920, and I think even though I made that mistake in my questions, it's important for your students to know that you do make mistakes. I don't live in my wardrobe closet. I don't just pull out the cot and sleep here all night. So I would definitely make sure that I double check just that one last time. In time, as teachers, we always run out of time, so you've just got to make sure that you get everything done in your allotted amount.
All right. Were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
I was just amazed at how many places they found answers from. They were using like the figurative language. One of the questions was talking about comparing Harding and Cox to Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And they just thought it was hysterical. They're like, oh, they're firing baby powder out of palpably tin cannons? And I was like, yes, you said palpably tin cannon, that's fantastic. And then they were able to say, wait, we still do that. It's almost 100 years later, and our politicians are still arguing about the same things. There's still religion in politics. Why do we have religion in politics? Isn't there a separation of church and state? And that made me so proud that even though they have a limited understanding of modern day politics and our elections that happened recently, and even sometimes they go, how many African American presidents have we had, instead of realizing that this is just the only one we've had. I'm just so proud that they're able to say, it's the same thing. This is why we study history. It repeats itself, missus. We need to make sure that we don't repeat ourselves. And that's the best part. I love that part of teaching.
That was a great wrap up. I love that.
Holy cow.
Good job. Do a little shot of your morphemes, and then, yeah, very nice.
Thank you, boys.